Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Day Football Show. I'm your host, Jackson Kellogg. Today we'll be getting into Week 7, my NFL Power Rankings. So, right off the bat, at number 32, I have the New York Jets. As I've said every week for the last couple weeks, Jets are not a competitive team. They will not move up on this list until they beat somebody. And I still don't see that happening this year. So, Jets are going to stay at 32. And from what it sounds like, they're selling off players. I've heard different rumors for Jamison Crowder, Brian Poole, Avery Williamson, and even Quinnen Williams and Sam Darnold. So all these different trade rumors, we'll see what happens coming up on the trade deadline in about 2 weeks. At 31, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. After their Week 1 win over the Colts, they've done nothing but been mediocre since. I did have a little bit higher hopes after that performance against the Colts, but they just haven't gotten anything going. Gardner Minshew is not looking like a franchise quarterback. Doug Marrone has even said that if he continues to play the way he does, he will get benched. So look for the Jaguars to be joining the Jets in the tank for Trevor. At 30, I have the Washington football team. This team went from looking very good after their win against the Eagles to, like the Jaguars, being mediocre since. They haven't been able to put wins together no matter who they're playing, and they're going to end up selling players off here soon. Dwayne Haskins is a bust. I've heard trade rumors about Ryan Kerrigan, one of their veteran top players. Rough spot for Washington to be in. At 29, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals, their main issues come from two things. The defense as a whole, for not being able to hold up any offense for any amount of time, and the fact that they have no offensive line. Joe Burrow keeps getting hit. He is on pace to be sacked 70 times this season. That's unprecedented numbers. That's even more than Deshaun Watson used to get sacked in seasons. So, very poor performances by the Bengals. They had like a 21-0 lead against the Colts and still found a way to lose. They need to get their act together, or they should just tank and go for someone like Penei Sewell from Oregon in the draft. At 28 of the New York Giants, I didn't think the Giants would get a win this year, but then I guess I overestimated the Washington football team. So the Giants do get a win. They don't go winless. So it's a little bit of a plus for them as they come out with a nice win. Don't look for them to get much more wins going forward, though. This team still has a lot to build on, and I have a feeling they're going to be selling off pieces like possibly Golden Tate and Evan Engram. At 27, I have the Detroit Lions. The Lions looked good in their win against Jacksonville. The offense is finally putting itself together. DeAndre Swift has bounced back from his Week 1 drop that would have sealed the win for the Lions. And the defense is slowly starting to come together. They still allowed a decent amount of points against the Jaguars, but they've got players coming back from injuries, so they're still trying to get that chemistry built up. At 26, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. They were down like 28-0 against the Ravens. They did start to have a comeback, but they still lost no matter. The Eagles are in the worst division in the league. They're not competitive. They got some lucky plays against the Ravens and turnovers, but the Eagles, they don't have a team that can compete against high-powered offenses, and they can't keep up on offense themselves as their offensive line is just destroyed, and Carson Wentz has no time in the pocket and no receivers to throw to. Honestly, I feel like the Eagles GM should be fired after this year for failure to build a team that has depth, because if you look at teams across the league, the 49ers have dealt with a ton of injuries. Patriots have dealt with a ton of injuries. So the Patriots have dealt with a similar amount of injuries as the Eagles have on the offensive line. I only know this because I'm a Patriots fan. And for the Broncos game, one of the main reasons that they lost was that they had 5 offensive guards starting at every position, or including the guard position. So Isaiah Wynn, who's generally our left tackle, was pushed to left guard. Joe Thuney was playing center. We had a rookie We had two rookie offensive guards playing tackles. We had a second-year guard playing right guard. So it was a very poor O-line on paper, but they didn't play completely horrible. They didn't give up a ton of sacks. They still allowed big plays to happen for the Broncos defensively, but it wasn't like a F performance. The Eagles' offensive line, on the other hand, is an F performance every week and is on the same standard as the Bengals' offensive line. So the failure for the Eagles to build depth on this team is just atrocious, and the GM needs to be held accountable for it. At 25 of the Minnesota Vikings, after watching the Vikings play the other week, where they put up a nice performance, against the Texans, where they put up a good offensive performance. They didn't do horrible defensively, and then to go and get creamed by the Falcons, a team that struggled pretty much all year. Bad look for the Minnesota Vikings, especially for Kirk Cousins, who just got a 2-year extension this offseason. The Vikings right now are looking at that and regretting it, as Kirk Cousins has regressed tremendously from last year. Dalvin Cook is now dealing with an injury. Justin Jefferson looks good. He's definitely put up one of the top offensive performances of a rookie throughout the season, which sucks because I drafted him in fantasy but then dropped him after that week 1 performance, but we're not going to talk about that. The Vikings still have to get it going on defense, though, and they haven't been able to do that. At 24, I have the Denver Broncos. Good performance for the Broncos after going 2 weeks without playing a game. The difference, though, between the Broncos going 2 weeks without playing and the Patriots going 2 weeks without playing is the Broncos didn't miss a practice. The Patriots missed all practices but one. So that's where you look at why the teams played the way they did. The Broncos looked very whole. There were very few issues defensively. The offense definitely has to get better at scoring in the red zone, as they got in the red zone, I think, like 4 to 6 times and kicked the field goal every time. They did not score a touchdown, and they got lucky that the Patriots couldn't get anything going on offense, because if they were, I think it would have been a very lopsided score, because the Broncos just couldn't get in the end zone. At 23, I have the Dolphins. Shutout win against the Jets. Dolphins have just named Tua Tagovailoa the starter for the rest of the season. Unless he starts to suck, then they'll put Ryan Fitzpatrick back in. But I mean, it's a win against the Jets. Not going to move them up like crazy. I still want to see them. They're 3-3, but they have to beat someone who is a competitor on the season. Their wins haven't been against dominant teams, other than the banged-up Niners. But I mean, even if you watch the film on that game, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't look like himself, which is why he was pulled, and they just couldn't get anything going. The 49ers couldn't get anything going in that game, so that's why the Dolphins killed them in that game. But if you were to put, say, the Raiders against the Dolphins, I don't think the Dolphins would be able to compete in that game, and the Raiders are wild card contenders. So, just to put a little bit of perspective on that. At 22, I have the Atlanta Falcons. Good win against the Vikings. They're starting to get it together a little bit more defensively. Offense hasn't really had any issues this year. It's definitely been more the defensive side of the ball. Calvin Ridley is a beast. They've got a nice 3 wide receiver head in Julio, Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage. Definitely performing higher than what the record says offensively, as they could very well be above 500 right now if the defense knew how to play defense. So Falcons going to look to build on this win after just firing their head coach Dan Quinn and GM Thomas Dimitroff 2 weeks ago. At 21, I have the Houston Texans. Not a horrible performance by the Texans. Their defense is still absolutely atrocious. But I mean, if you look at their offense, finally started to get it going, and it was against a pretty good defense in the Titans. They're not a joke defense. So the fact that the Texans were able to keep up offensively with the Titans does say something about how This offense is growing, but defensively, they still have no idea how to play defense. Titans still put up 42 points on them. Very poor defensive performance, and I think it's going to be the downfall of the Texans this season, as they're not going to be able to compete in games because they're going to have to be in shootouts every week. At 20, I have the Carolina Panthers. They were slowly putting together a nice season, but then they just got absolutely beat up this week. The offense couldn't get anything going, and the defense looked more like its old self. So, not the best performance by the Panthers. Definitely have to look to get better after that this week. Christian McCaffrey is going to be out this week for Week 7. There is a chance that he comes back for Week 8, though. Definitely sounds a lot better for my fantasy team. At 19, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. They were on bye this week, but due to other teams losing, they move up a spot. Justin Herbert is still the starter and probably will remain the starter for the rest of the season. It's a shame Tyrod Taylor, he was given the opportunity, got injured, and then the doctor messed him up. So Tyrod Taylor, he's kind of now the quarterback who he grooms the younger players. I mean, you look at Buffalo, it was Josh Allen. Cleveland, it was Baker Mayfield. Buffalo, it was Nathan Peterman. Then he got traded to Cleveland. Then it was Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. And now Justin Herbert with the Chargers. So you feel bad for the man. At 18, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I really should put them lower on this list for having one of the worst defenses in the league. But they have too much offensive talent to put them lower. They're still, I feel like, a little bit better than the teams that are just below them. But the Cowboys' issues, Andy Dalton did not look good in that win. Ezekiel Elliott leads the league in fumbles with 5. Next closest person, I think, only had like 2 or 3. And he's a top 3 running back. You can't be letting that happen. All the receivers look good for the Cowboys. That's about the only plus side you can look at for this team right now, as that triple wide receiver head keeps giving a headache for opposing defenses. At 17, I have the Los Angeles Rams. Not a great looking performance by the Rams against the Niners. Niners, who are banged up, don't have all their starters playing. They got absolutely outplayed 10 out of 10 by Kyle Shanahan. That defense with Jason Verrett and I forget the other guy's name. Emmanuel Mosley. Those 2 corners shut out the Rams. Jared Goff couldn't get anything going, and the running game couldn't keep the game going as well. So the 49ers put up a good performance. The Rams, not a great look for a team that's battling in a tough division as well as a tough conference for a likely wildcard spot. At 16, I have the Indianapolis Colts. They rallied back after being down 21-0 early against the Bengals. Phillip Rivers is starting to look a little bit better. So is the defense, as they were able to hold the Bengals down for the next 3 quarters of the game. I don't think that they're as competitive as people think they are. The game that really showed that is that loss to the Browns, because the Browns put up a dominant performance against the Colts in that game. Definitely beat them. And then you look at how the Browns right now are the bullies of the weak teams, because they'll blow out teams like the Bengals offensively. They'll beat the Colts. But then they go and play teams like the Ravens and the Steelers, and they get absolutely destroyed. Now, granted, Baker Mayfield was injured, but now you look at the Colts, they couldn't beat up that Browns team. So I definitely think that the Colts are similar to the Browns in where they can beat mediocre teams, but if put up against tough competition, it's not going to be close. At number 15, I have the Chicago Bears. Yes, I know they're 5-1, but their record does not speak for their play. They do not look like a good team. Nick Foles looked better this week against the Panthers, but it was more of a defensive effort by this team. I definitely think Nick Foles and Trubisky are going to be gone after this year, or they're going to keep Nick Foles and try to have him battle with whoever they take in the draft or in free agency, because neither of these guys are the answer, and I have a feeling they're going to blow up this offense. At 14, the San Francisco 49ers. Good dominant win against the Rams. Definitely showed that they are still a contender despite the injuries that they've had to deal with. They are going to have a very telling game for both sides as they play the Patriots this upcoming week. It's going to be telling to see how well the Niners and the Patriots can both do against two teams that are competitive, as I think both of their records do not speak for the level of competitiveness that these teams have. Is I think they're both playoff to Super Bowl contenders, but they've just gotten the short end of the stick so far this season. At 13, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. They were on bye this week as well as the Chargers. Move up due to other movements. The Raiders do look a lot better this season than a lot of people expected them to. Derek Carr's looking a lot better than all the people who wanted him gone. A lot of people wanted the Raiders to take Jordan Love in the draft last year. We're seeing now that it was a smart decision to not do that, as Henry Ruggs is starting to get better, and Damon Arnett, despite the issues that they've had with him this season, still is a better pick than Jordan Love, who is redshirted right now and the third string for the Packers. So John Gruden definitely figuring out how to put his team together, and it's starting to look better as they'll compete for a wild card spot this year, as they're not going to take the division away from the Chiefs. And number 12, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Good blowout win against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. My only critique for the Cardinals, though, is they looked better defensively as Budda Baker shut them down in the secondary. But man, that offense, that was very shaky. Kenyon Drake did well. A lot of his stats are padded due to that 69-yard touchdown run right at the end of the game. But, I mean, the fact that Cardinals, or Kyler Murray was 9 for 22, had over 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that, I don't know whether to call it poor play defensively or poor play offensively or both, but the Cardinals got to get better with that, because there's no way you're going to play any other team besides the Jets or the Cowboys be able to have only 9 completed passes on 22 throws and be able to have such a blowout win like that. So the Cardinals got to figure out that game on offense. At number 11, I have the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns hype train is taking a little bit of a turn as they are 4-2, 6 weeks into the season, but their 2 losses are blowout losses to division rivals who are playoff and Super Bowl contenders. So is it just saying that the Browns are, like I said earlier, are they just bullies of the week, or are they fakers? Are they just not good enough to beat those teams yet? Who knows? We'll find out as the season goes on. I do still think that the Browns will make the playoffs due to their super weak schedule, because of how they played last year. They got a lot of favorable matchups to end the season in the second half. So definitely look for the Browns to still make the playoffs, but I have a feeling they're going to be a first-round exit, as they're not going to be competitive against whoever they play. At number 10, I have the Patriots. I didn't really want to move the Patriots down this far because I read too much into the Patriots, and I understand why now that they lost. I definitely put too much hope in them in my Boston Tea Party podcast this past week. You should go check that out if you haven't already. Do those weekly. If you're a Patriots fan, you should totally check it out. Anyways, there's a lot of finger pointing going on for the Patriots. Defensively, they're starting to look better. They were definitely shut down on defense as they allowed 6 field goals, not a single touchdown in that game, and they had to deal with a lot of bad field position. Now, offensively, like I said earlier, the Patriots were playing 5 guards it was like 5 guards were playing at every position. And so not only did they have issues there, then Cam Newton hadn't practiced in 2 weeks, and actually the whole team didn't practice in 2 weeks, but Cam had COVID, so he was out for even more time than the rest of the Patriots team. Dealt with that illness. The offense, it was very shaky. It was very inconsistent, and a lot of finger pointing is going because there's a lot of debate whether it's Cam Newton's fault, is it the receiver's fault, is it the offensive line's fault. I feel like there's a little bit to go around. Cam Newton in a press conference was like, all the blame's on me. No, not all the blame is on him. They only had one practice in 2 weeks, where the Broncos had at least like 9 to 12. So, I mean, that's a huge, significant defense. Anyone who's played a sport knows that you can't go that long without practicing and expect to play that well. So you're definitely seeing the effects of not having a preseason on these teams. More injuries and longer time to get chemistry with new teammates. At number 9, I have the Buffalo Bills. They got absolutely destroyed against the Titans. Then they looked to try and bounce back against the Chiefs, and it did not happen as some of their inconsistencies continued. They put up a decent effort defensively against the Chiefs, but it was not enough, and the offense could not get anything going. So the Bills, I definitely think they're similar to the Browns in the aspect that they're going to be good against teams that aren't the greatest, but you put them up against the top competition, they're not going to show you what you want to see, and it might hurt Josh Allen's confidence, and that would not be good for this Bills team at all, as Josh Allen was finally starting to look better. At number 8, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 5-0, but if you look at the teams that they've beaten, like the teams that were competitive last year and this year, they've beaten the Texans, they've beaten the Browns. The Texans were competitive last year. They only won by 1 touchdown. They barely beat the Broncos by a touchdown. They destroyed the Browns, but like I said, the Browns are one of those teams. Beat the weak, can't beat the strong. So I'm still not sold on the Steelers yet. Similar to the Browns, where I don't think their record speaks to this team's play. I think the defense, yes, I've critiqued the defense. I did see a stat, though, that they've had at least 3 sacks and an interception in every game this year. Let's see how they play against the Ravens, and we'll see if that stat line continues, because I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Steelers are big pretenders. I think they'll still make the playoffs, but I don't think they're the Super Bowl contender that everyone's hyping them up to be. At number 7, I have the Baltimore Ravens. So, yes, they beat the Eagles, so you say, why would you move them down? Well, I wasn't moving them up based off of the people that are in front of them, and they had a lead against the Eagles and almost blew it. To a team like the Eagles, you should not be doing that. That is a bad look for a team that is competing for a Super Bowl and who hasn't even looked the greatest in the last couple weeks, especially with how poor of a performance they put up against a team like the Chiefs. So Ravens definitely got to look to get better consistently and be able to be competitive against high-powered teams and not let a weak team like the Eagles come close to getting a comeback victory. Number 6, I have the New Orleans Saints. Bye week for the Saints, but Patriots, Bills, and Ravens, I all dropped them out because of their performances last week. So they move up a little bit. Drew Brees is finally starting to get his chemistry with his receivers. Michael Thomas will be back after this week, so hopefully that helps the offense out a little bit. Takes a bit more pressure off of the other receivers and Alvin Kamara. So it's putting Michael Thomas on the field as an instant double team, and that just leaves more open space for the rest of the players. So Traquan Smith was starting to look good. Emmanuel Sanders was starting to look better. Both of them flipping back and forth between not playing very good and then getting 100-yard games. So they've been flipping back and forth. And you're going to look to see a lot more linebacker coverage on Kamara in space. So that is a favorable matchup as well. So Saints definitely going to look to get the ball rolling after this bye. At number 5, I have the Green Bay Packers. Boy, oh boy, Packers. I picked you guys to lose, but I didn't expect it to be that badly. That was a very poor performance by the Packers in that game. Aaron Rodgers looked shaky, entered the game with no interceptions on the season, throws 2, including one of them being a pick 6. And then the defense couldn't hold up against the Tom Brady-led offense. That hasn't even been the greatest this year. Ronald Jones rushed for over 100 yards on him. Rojo's not even the best of running backs. The Packers always talk about that great defensive front. So poor performance by the Packers. So they're dropped down to 5 from being in the number 1 spot. Definitely going to have to look to rebound from this game, or else it could get ugly for them. At number 4, I have the Buccaneers. I moved the Buccaneers up this much. I didn't really want to, especially after that performance against the Bears. I think the Bears are just a really good defensive team, but it's not going to carry them that far. Whereas the Buccaneers, they have a great defense, but they also have a pretty decent offense that's probably about top 10 area. So that's why they're able to win games. That's why they were able to shut down the Packers, who the Packers have been known for choking in the big games. And this just showed it. Buccaneers took advantage. Tom Brady hasn't even been historically good against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, but he definitely helped his case for still going at the old age of 43. Getting into the top 3, Kansas City Chiefs at number 3. Move them up a little bit after their performance against the Bills. Yes, I picked the Chiefs to lose. That's because I thought the Bills were a bit more competitive, and they clearly weren't. The Chiefs are still the top dogs of the AFC, despite the fact that they're not in this power ranking. Look to see a Titans-Chiefs matchup at some point be the decider on who the number 1 team in this division is. Because I definitely, if I were to put like a pecking order right now, not my power rankings. Power rankings are based off of how the teams have played so far this season. But if you were to go like head to head, I'd throw Chiefs at number 1, Titans at 2, Ravens at 3. And I'd say Patriots at 4 if they get a full week of practice, Bills 5, Steelers 6. That's my order right now for like how the teams would stack up against each other. Maybe flip the Bills and Steelers, but definitely the Chiefs are still the best team in this conference. They just have 1 loss, and the team that's up next doesn't. So at number 2, I have the Titans. They have looked dominant against every team that they have played recently. I was a little, I want to say, I definitely think they were overhyped to start. I needed to see them do well against a competitive team. I mean, they had 3 straight games where they won because of a Gauski field goal, and it wasn't even great teams. It was the Jaguars, the Vikings, and the Broncos. I mean, field goals to win those games. And those teams all have losing records right now. So now you look at the Bills game and the Texans game. Yeah, they allowed a lot of points by the Texans, but that's 2 straight games where they've gotten over 40 points on offense, and their offense isn't even that hugely schemely competitive, or not competitive. It's a very easy offense to understand. It's handoffs to Derrick Henry with play action over the top. I mean, it's not hard to understand. It's not even that hard to read if you get a smart defense. But the Titans are putting it together, and they are looking like a great competitive Super Bowl contender. And at number 1, that leaves the team led by the chef himself, Russell Wilson, as he is leading this team to a historical season for the Seahawks. Russell Wilson putting up MVP numbers. He's definitely number 1 in the MVP race right now. He was in competition with Aaron Rodgers, but after that performance against the Bucs, right now Russell Wilson is definitely the clear favorite for that spot. And I don't know if anyone else is that close. So Russell Wilson definitely carrying this Seahawks team on its back, especially based off of how the defense has been playing. Just coming off a bye, I don't remember exactly who they're playing this week, but it's going to be a long season for everyone who has to play the Seahawks. And the Seahawks definitely going to make the playoffs, but we'll look to see if they can get past their playoff woes of being early exits. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching if you made it to the end of this. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please subscribe, leave a like. It would greatly help the growth of this show. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Let's go root for those Patriots on Sunday against the 49ers.